John and Ed, they're on patrol, chasing shadows, heart and soul. Cryptid hunter UFO, down this rabbit hole they go. In the woods and on the street, whispers follow their heartbeat. Alien eyes, giant's feet, old got shadows they all meet. Down the rabbit hole they dive, midnight secrets start to thrive. Mysteries keep them alive. In the dark, does truth survive? Haunted houses, midnight calls, endless echoes in the halls. Ghostly murmurs, secret falls, every clue, they chase them all. Whispers follow their heartbeat. Alien eyes, giant's feet, all got shadows they all meet. Down the rabbit hole they dive, midnight secrets start to thrive. Mysteries keep them alive. In the dark, does truth survive? Haunting walls, they've got the key. Hidden fears, they set them free. Cryptid hunter, you and me. Down this rabbit hole, let's see. Unseen worlds, they've got the key. Hidden fears, they set them free. Cryptid hunter, you and me. Down this rabbit hole, let's see.
Hey, good evening, one and all. Welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole with me and Ed. How you doing, Ed?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm recovering from a...
You look a bit like Peppy, a wee bit green about the gills.
Too much wine last night. I was in my cups, as they say.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Let's see if a bit of hair
Oh,
of the dog.
hair of the dog, hair of the dog. There he goes.
But yeah, just it's one of those nights where you check your phone in the morning and you're like, oh my god,
what have I done? Oh my god! Right, let's do a quick roll call. Clown World. I take it that's Ray. He's changed his name. Sarah Jane. Oh, Sarah Jane. That's a new name. I had a massive.
It's drinking Shiraz.
I had a massive crush on Sarah Jane Smith from Doctor Who. John Pertwee era.
Right. I was never much of a Doctor Who fan.
Oh, yeah. Right. Oh, Doctor Who was good. Doctor Who used to be good. John Pertwee was the Doctor, though. Tom Baker wasn't bad, but John Pertwee was the Doctor. Right. Shalene, good to see you, doll. Julie C. Nick Caridas, as always. Dreadeye and Julie. Who else we got? Is that all? Sarah Jane, my heart goes out to all the families. Well, actually, I was just about to say that, Sarah Jane, because I don't know if you've been here before, but we tend to take quite an irreverent look at things and mock most things. But before we start, what we have to remember, regardless of where we go or where anyone else goes, because there's some pretty wild theories out there, which I'm going to try and temper, but there's some pretty wild theories out there, and you have to remember that 67 people lost their lives. 3 soldiers in that helicopter and 64 people, I think. 60 passengers and 4 crew on the plane.
I think it was something like that. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if the exact was.
And they all lost their lives, unfortunately. So this is a tragedy first and foremost, regardless of who died or how it happened or whatever. It is a tragedy, and your heart does have to go out to those people. And someone said, I think someone on Twitter said, "Ugh, no VIPs on the helicopter." Well, everybody is somebody's VIP,
Well,
and I mean
yes.
that seriously.
Yeah, no, it's true. Absolutely. I mean, even it's like if they had kids or wives, and I mean, it's horrible. And
Yeah.
and there's a whole bunch of grieving families out there tonight. That
Yep.
yeah, as you say, your heart goes out to them, and
It's echoey. It shouldn't be.
it's echoey.
He looks fine this side.
Oh, I don't know.
No,
It's always me with the problems.
don't worry too much. It's Ray. He could be experiencing double hearing. He certainly seems okay this side. Sarah Jane's from New Zealand. Excellent. Cool. I do like to branch out. And welcome. New Zealand's probably nearly as bad as Scotland when it comes to oppression. I don't know if it's got better since Jacinda packed it in, but yeah. Somebody insulted me on the Cult of UFO channel the other day. They said it's quite hard to understand, which I thought I was being really quite particular on the Cult of UFO channel. He's quite hard to understand if you're not Irish, and I thought, you're blocked. Blocked. There's just no excuse for that. No excuse.
Oh dear. Well, they didn't ask you if you came from Liverpool or something.
Well, that's true. That's true. There's always that. My uncle's got a sheep farm in New Zealand.
That's it. That's interesting.
Yeah. He did have a tobacco farm, but they were giving big subsidies to switch to sheep, so he did. This was way back in the 80s, I think. 80s, yeah. Because my cousin came over. He was a New Zealand karting champion at one point, Sgt Grumpy, and he came over. And I was only like 12 or something. He took me up to the Edinburgh Tattoo, and I loved it. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Never been back, but a great thing to go to as a kid. Anyway, right? Shall we start? Do you want to start with the right? So, as far as I am aware now, what happened was American Airlines plane on final approach and lined up for landing on the short runway. Now, this is important, right? So it's lined up for approach and heading to land on the short runway, and this chopper, which various people say took off from Davidson Field or from CIA headquarters at Langley or whatever, this chopper, military helicopter, VH-60, I think from the 12th, which is basically brass transport, right?
Pete, I'm not sure if you saw the news, but Pete Hegseth, the new US Secretary of Defense, has already actually said that the flight was related to continuity of government operations.
Yeah, okay. So it was probably on its way to pick someone up. It's flying down the Potomac River, which runs alongside Dulles Airport. Now, I'll point out the runways. I do have a slide for that. Should we go to the slides?
Might as well.
So, here we go. Disaster on the Potomac. We've had that before as well. Remember the one that missed the runway and landed in the Potomac in the ice? Now, this picture here shows you what's happening, roughly, okay? Now, yes, you can see my mouse. So this plane up here, right, is coming into land. And it's coming into land on a direct approach down that flight path, okay? right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this plane here was originally coming into land on direct approach on that flight path, but was asked to use the short runway, which is this one here. You see the difference? It cuts diagonally across, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that plane has deviated from the direct in approach, and it's swung round, and it's coming in this direction. The helicopter is flying supposedly at 200 feet, flying down the Potomac, which is neither here nor there for a military helicopter.
Well, no, it kind of, hang on a minute. This is actually an important thing because there's a hard ceiling for rotary winged aircraft, rotary helicopters, basically, in the DC area of 100 feet.
Yeah, well, he's doing 200 feet.
Yeah, so he was outside.
No,
What it
they
should
don't.
be.
They don't fly below 100 feet. There's no way. That'll be a hard deck. There's no way they'll be flying below 100 feet, especially near population.
I'm
So
pretty sure that's what I saw earlier.
you'll need to check
Look at
that
one.
because there's no way he's flying below 100 feet. So anyway, he's meant to be doing 200 feet, heading down the helicopter channel, basically, which is all down here. Now, as far as he's aware, all the traffic coming in is landing direct ahead on the main runway. So any commercial traffic shouldn't be crossing his path, but should be coming in straight ahead. Now, if we go back to this picture, see that dot there? See that dot? That's the light flashing on the helicopter because I watched it coming in. Okay, so that's the helicopter, right? It's over the river and it's flying in at, and this is important, at 400 feet. He's double the height that he's supposed to be at. This is the plane. Now, this plane is on approach. This plane would have been a lot higher, but is on a glide path. And apparently he was right on the glide path. So he is descending as he approaches because the airport starts just after the river. So he's coming down and he's at 400 feet. Now, my point is the helicopter's flying along 400 feet. The plane is coming in high and to his left on a glide slope, right? And what happened is, it appears they have met, which is not something you would expect. Now, I have a visual aid here, and I just wanted to try this to see what the difference is, because this is very similar to a helicopter pilot's helmet. Now, at the moment, if I look ahead, I can see, without any problem, I can see the ceiling of this room that I'm in, which is about 10 foot high. It's quite a high ceiling, right? Yeah, Ray says 100 foot minimum, so it's a hard deck, right? So they can't go below 100 feet when they're flying. Ed. So here we go. Right. So if I put this helmet on, right? Yeah. Oh, got to. Oh.
Look, according to this tweet, he's talking about an invisible ceiling, which implies that you can't get higher than 100 feet, not lower than 100 feet.
So let me go through this first. Now I've got my helicopter pilot helmet on. I can't see above the camera, which is only this high above me, right? So for me to look up at the ceiling, I've got to tilt my head back all the time, right? And flying a helicopter is going to be exactly the same, apart from the fact that you've only got two little windows above you in the BlackHawk. So I think the chances of him seeing the plane coming in high and from his left are going to be pretty slim.
Yeah, but they don't just rely
And that's
on...
why when people say, how can this possibly happen? How can someone... Oh, God, I think I broke my... I broke my headphone. I know. Is it working?
The thing is that they don't just rely on their eyes. They have... I mean, they have radars. They have, what is it called? ACAS, the Aircraft Collision Warning System, or Collision Alert System.
But hold on.
You have bloody air traffic controllers who are supposed to be doing their job.
Hold on. Let's go through this. Right. So, first of all, you're in a very congested area. You can't use your military pilots aren't using their normal visual night flying aids like what do you call it, thermal imaging or image intensifiers, because just too much light around, just so much light around that they get swamped by it. So they're really on a line of sight. They're flying down what they think is a clear helicopter channel down the Potomac. They're meant to be at 200 feet, right? They expect all the traffic that they're going to see, which they're looking at that big plane that's coming in higher up. They're looking at this plane up here, which is coming directly towards them, right? So I think this has been an unfortunate collision of circumstances which has caused this. Now, radar at these heights doesn't work terribly well because you've got a lot of ground clutter at that height. Radar, air traffic control radar doesn't work very well below 3,000 feet. And when you're down in the hundreds, you'll be struggling to pick anything out of the clutter. So very unlikely they're using radar. Now, someone has said that the transponder and the
absurd. They'd have air traffic control over the capital city of the United States, to say that they wouldn't have clear eyes of what was in the air near the White House and near the Capitol building. That's just
not that height.
Not a serious argument.
It's a serious argument. At that height, the ground clutter is immense. Radar is only an aid, right? This plane's at 400 feet. He's just about on the deck, right? You can't pick stuff out of the rest of the stuff around them.
That's why they have transponders.
There's two things that they do. The main way of keeping aircraft apart isn't so much radar or by seeing where they are. It's making them fly at different heights, right? And that's why they have flight levels. So when he's on his descent, he's been told he's on final approach now, so he'll be dropping height all the way. Okay, the helicopter's meant to be at 200 feet. He's not. He's at 400 feet. Somebody's made an error here.
Oh, yeah, that's obvious.
Yeah. So
probably more than one someone.
Well, yeah, but if the helicopter's at 400 foot, he was either told to fly at 400 feet, or he has drifted up to 400 feet.
Air traffic control tends not to let aircraft just do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah. They're in the helicopter, what do they call it? Channel, right? They're in the helicopter line. And there's a lot of traffic goes up and down this airspace. This is a really congested airspace. So, like everything, people make mistakes, and someone has made a mistake here, because you hear the air traffic controller asking the helicopter pilot if he can see the plane. What plane's he talking about? That's the problem. He says, "Can you see the plane?" And the helicopter pilot says, "Yeah, I can see it." Well, what one? My contention is he's seeing the one that's coming in on straight approach, that's higher and brighter.
Yeah, I mean that's a logical explanation.
And
I don't know what the hell happened, but
it
seems that you got air traffic controllers that must have fucked up. The pilot of the helicopter definitely fucked up.
If he's at 400 feet when he should have been at 2, he has definitely fucked up. You're correct.
And that's, people do make mistakes, but pilots are amongst the most cautious of people.
Yes, normally, but yeah,
sure.
Well, yes and no, right? But military pilots are people, right? Just like everyone else, and they tend to be younger, right? And they tend to have more fun, and we've seen the results of things like that. For instance, you've seen that one of the Apache landing at the airbase in the mountains and forgetting that he didn't have as much lift and showboating does a flyby, a quick lifting turn, and then loses all direction, all forward momentum, and ends up crashing. So yeah, military pilots can be a little bit gung ho, right? I'm not saying he was or wasn't, but someone is in error here when that aircraft is 200 feet higher than it should have been. He was going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
He just seems to have been at the wrong height.
And I'm struggling given the sensitivity of the area, and given how highly trained, particularly the air traffic controllers have to be, is they have to be able to spot. Because I mean, obviously, they want to prevent another 9/11.
Yeah.
And so, if there's an aircraft that looks like it might be headed for the White House or the Capitol or the Pentagon, some other strategic building in Washington, is that they have to be able to respond to that very quickly.
I understand what you're saying, but remember,
the notion that this helicopter was just out fucking doing whatever it wanted to do.
Nobody's saying that. The helicopter's in the proper helicopter channel that it should be flying down, down the Potomac, right? Helicopter's obviously identified as a military asset. Therefore, there is probably a degree of, it is a military helicopter, so we're not terribly worried about it. The first point where it seems to be that the air traffic controller is sensing something wrong is when he says, "Can you see the plane?" Right? And not specifying the plane. At that point, he specified the wrong plane. That's the problem, because there is no doubt through their transponders, they're seeing these two objects getting close together. Now, that's fine. There's no problem with two objects getting close together on a 2D screen when you take into account that they're supposed to be separated by elevation. But these two weren't, because that plane's descending down into the helicopter, and the helicopter has either come up into the plane or he's just been on the wrong flight level. I don't know if he made an error.
I mean, Occam's razor would say that the simplest explanation is most likely true. Human error.
You remember the air crash at Dallas? The fighter plane that flew into the bomber?
No. Right.
So there was tragedy at Dallas Aircraft. It was Dallas Air Show. There was I think 3 or 4 fighter planes had flown across. They're flying across the airport, and a bomber had taken off and was going up. And the third or fourth fighter plane, then they're all old fighter planes, they're all propeller driven. The third or fourth one flies into the bottom of the bomber, basically. I think it was that way. Yeah, because of the way he was turning, you couldn't see that. Yeah, he was turning like this. So here's the cockpit's on this side. So he's turned away from the plane and he's drifting up and he flies into the bottom of the bomber. And the bomber didn't see him coming and he didn't see the bomber. It's just, these things can happen in 3D when people don't understand how little you can see out of certain aircraft. It's quite it can be quite, especially at night, because, and this takes us back briefly to bike wankers, right? Because see, when a cyclist goes out at night with that flashing white light, you have no freaking way of judging distance to a flashing light. You can't, your eyes just can't do it. And when someone is cycling along a road and they don't have a steady light, they are asking for trouble because you have no idea how close or far away they are.
Yeah, but cyclists don't have collision avoidance systems and transponders and electronic means. I mean, this is because all commercial airliners have to have it.
Yeah,
military aircraft probably do as well.
So the plane's coming down.
Some sort of beeping fucking thing on the
Well, possibly,
the
right?
console of the helicopter.
So the helicopter's never actually going to see the plane. See, the problem is the helicopter is flying straight and level, and there's nothing in front of it. I mean, this is where Trump goes, why can't the pilot see the massive aircraft in front of him? Well, it's not in front of him. It's coming in from above and to the side, right?
Well, to me, this is an air traffic control fuck up.
It's if air traffic control have told the pilot to fly at 200 feet, it's the pilot's fuck up, right? If air traffic control let the pilot fly at 400 feet across a descending aircraft approaching a runway, then it's definitely air traffic control's fuck up. Yeah, somebody's fucked up here. This is and the problem now we have is all these people that start going on about it being the helicopter was under remote control. That it was targeted deliberately to take out people on the flight or whatever. There are easier ways of getting rid of people than taking out a whole aircraft, you know? But I'm kind of thinking this is all looking like an accident, not a psyop. You don't take out commercial aircraft on a psyop, really, do you?
Not unless, because there was that Operation Northwoods plan that they had, but I mean, that's in a completely different context.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, no. I mean, it's incredibly messy. I mean, okay, if you wanted to assassinate someone and make it look like an accident, there are easier ways to do it that don't involve quite so much collateral damage and also risk, because if you're going to deliberately crash two aircraft into each other, you have no idea where any of that debris is going to end up to start with. And okay, yeah, you can try and do it over a river, but there's no guarantee that those aircraft will actually end up in the river. You might end up in someone's house.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I mean, exactly that. You're right. And that's the kind of thing that there's too many variables when you start planning. It's like when you want to take out a bridge across, like, for instance, Baltimore or something like that. What's easier? Destroy the bridge or remote control a container ship to try and ram one of the pillars. It's like you say, Occam's razor. Don't make it hard for yourself if there are easier ways of doing it.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think there was anyone of any importance apart from the pilots. I mean, obviously, as you said before, everyone is important to someone, but in terms of big strategic terms, it wasn't like a minister or a congressman or a general or anyone like that on this aircraft. And I mean, even if there was someone important on the helicopter that they wanted to get rid of, it's easier just to make the helicopter crash, and you don't need to necessarily crash it into an airliner.
And we're actually going to go into that because helicopters crash quite a lot. I mean, the US military loses, on average, 30 helicopters a year. Loses on average 30 helicopters a year from non-combat incidents. So that's either mechanical failure or pilot error. That's quite a lot to lose. My dad was in the Navy and he used to go out on they'd go away on a ship for like 2 years or whatever on a deployment. And for every year they were away, they would bank on losing at least one helicopter. Just helicopters are dodgy things, and no one is disparaging military pilots here before anyone thinks I am. But military pilots are humans, and they make mistakes just like the rest of us. Everybody makes mistakes, and someone who thinks that you don't make a mistake is the person you don't want to be flying your plane, because the Peter Perfect does not exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's true. And I mean, ultimately, it's also very early stages. I mean, there's going to be flight data recorders and cockpit voice recorders and all this other stuff that's going to eventually come to light.
Yeah.
I mean, from what I've heard, there was nobody of any importance on
I think there
the
was
airplane.
some Russian figure skaters on
Yeah.
the aircraft, which is quite.
It did make me chuckle that Trump is indirectly blaming DEI, because the previous they've actually, apparently the FAA have turned away qualified air traffic control people because they didn't have the right skin color or gender fluidity or whatever.
Yeah. You know what? And DEI should never be used as an excuse for anything. It certainly shouldn't be putting people in positions that are critical and require high level of skill. And I mean, we can talk about this tomorrow, but Cambridge and Oxford have just decided they're going to drop their exam requirements for to make it easier for less. Well, how do you say this? I mean, how do you say this? They're dropping their requirements to pass exams because people are more stupid, or because the people that are coming here and spending money to go to university are more stupid. I don't know. I mean, how do you say this politically correctly? I don't have a clue.
You don't. It's one of those minefields that, regardless of what you say, you're probably going to end up offending someone. But those people getting offended probably get offended so easily. They spend 90% of their day offended, and they probably get offended by their dreams as well. To me, we should be a meritocracy. People should get jobs based on being good at it. And if Oxford and Cambridge want to claim that they're two of the best institutions of higher learning in the world, then they can't really say that if they're prepared to dumb their exams down just so that they can increase the diversity of their student community. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think, it's more about trying to raise the level of the students rather than drop the level of the university.
It should be more about it.
But it's also, they're just shooting themselves in the foot, because people are going to see this story and they're not going to think that Oxford and Cambridge are necessarily the best places to go to university. Exactly.
So McNell's TV says the British Army used to let them fly one of their Gazelles. Excellent. Jolly good. So that's good if you've got some insight into this. I certainly, everything I see so far from a layman's point of view is pointing towards this being an accident. A tragic accident, and there are people at fault, but I can't determine who they all are yet.
No, and it's only just happened. It's not. I think this is actually the first time we've done a show about current events where it's literally on the same day as the event happens. The show is going out. So yeah, that's true. There's a lot of stuff we don't know.
And let's move. Well, should we move into something that we do know? Right.
Sure.
Okay, so Ray here says he used to make engine parts for the Chinooks. I'd never fly one. Well, I remember I was sitting having my break in Traffic South on Meiklewood Road in Glasgow, and I hears running down the corridor, and the inspector busts into to the break room and goes, "Right, everybody, saddle up. A helicopter's crashed near Loch Kilpen, and we've got to get the mobile office and the communications vehicle up there." And I'm like, "Ah!" And everybody's still eating their dinner, and the inspector goes back up, and I wanders up because I was a sergeant. I goes, "Is this right enough, boss?" And he goes, yeah, seriously, get the mobile office fucking saddled up, get it up there, Ray can drive it, and get the comms vehicle out, dig that out, and get that up there as well. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So this was what, 1994, I think, 94. So starts getting everybody, finish our dinner, that's it, we're done, everybody's out, we're in the yard, we're getting all the stuff pulled out. The mobile office is an articulated vehicle, so it's a big 35-foot trailer with an Arctic unit to pull it. So Ray goes and hooks that up, and everybody's rushing about. I got the comms vehicle dug it out the back of the shed that we keep all the vehicles in, and then comes out the thing just after I got the comms vehicle fired up, so as that was running and warming up. Comes out the thing and he fucking sees Ray pulling away with a mobile office, and he hadn't coupled the fifth wheel up properly, so the Arctic unit drove away, and the next thing the mobile office slides off the back of the fifth wheel, and next thing, bing, 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 all the fucking air hoses ping off, and the mobile office is left lying in the yard, and the Arctic unit's 20 feet down the road. And I'm like, I don't fucking believe it. So we had to go and get our other trailer unit and couple that up, which took about 15 minutes or more. And then I made Ray drive it, because this one has no power steering, no synchromesh on the gearbox. Right? It was that old. They had every gear change is a double D clutch, and no power steering. So everything you end up with arms like Garth by the time you get anywhere. So he set off, and then we sent the communications vehicle and all that out. So this was the RAF's worst peacetime disaster, I think. When the Chinook that had left Belfast and was heading to Fort George in Inverness flew into a hillside in the Mull of Kintyre. It was very heavy fog, and we're not quite sure what happened. Initially, the pilots were blamed for this, but basically, the aircraft flew into the hillside, and there wasn't a lot left of it. That's a Chinook, believe it or not. So you can imagine the mess of the aircraft, and all 28, was it 28 staff that were being ferried up to Fort George, and they were all members of the intelligence services from Britain and the US, I believe. Because this was like 2 days before the ceasefire with the Troubles. Sorry, 2 weeks. Yeah, so everybody died in that one. So that was quite a horrific one. And that was one night in 1994. Now, initially the blame was laid on the pilots, but I think there was a long-standing campaign about it not being the pilot's faults, and eventually I think it came down to the fact that there might have been a fault in one of the gearboxes, and in fact I think Chinooks were grounded after that for a while, and they were all rejigged and different gearboxes put in them, I think. Mm-hmm. So that was that one. Did you enjoy that?
Really, I don't know if enjoying a story about a horrific aircraft accident is necessarily the right way to put it. It's interesting though.
Yeah.
As
you've been up the helicopter, Ed?
Only once, yes, over the Victoria Falls.
Oh, that would be cool.
Last time I was in Zambia.
Yeah.
They're very strange. The thing that creeped me out the most to start with is you go up and then the nose goes forward, so you kind of tip forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For it to actually start moving, and when you do that the first time, it's a bit weird because you're not used to. I wasn't expecting that, but yeah, doing a helicopter flight over the Victoria Falls is rather spectacular.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Cool. So this little helicopter here, right? I've been in that on more than one occasion. This was Strathclyde Police's first helicopter. This was their Balco 105. I think a German military helicopter. This one had quite an interesting history because it initially belonged to Aristotle Onassis and was used as his personal transport to and from his yacht.
Oh, right.
So it had very low hours when the police got it. But this one was pretty cool. That was utilitarian to say the least. It's not like a fancy helicopter. But I went up in that with an ex-Navy pilot, and we were out over the Rannoch Moor, just north of Kilmarnock. Not Rannoch Moor. Rannoch Moor. And he was doing acrobatics. He was flying up, almost vertically up, and then pushing it over the top so you would go kind of weightless as you went over. And then he was diving down and pulling it up into the fire break. So the trees were higher than you on both sides. It was quite an experience because you don't normally get that kind of flying generally, and when people take you on a commercial ride. So that was quite good. We had to go on a couple of check rides with them because we had to go in all tooled up with all our gear on, get weighed, and then they would take us up in the helicopter for a couple of check rides in case we had to be lifted and shifted to, incidents in the islands or whatever like that. One of the times, and it wasn't this helicopter, it was, there's another picture of it. It's quite cool though. That was quite a cool helicopter. Then the police switched to Eurocopter models, I think. And we...
that's the ones they use now, because that's what the Brighton police helicopter looks like.
Yeah. So, in fact, was it this one? No, it was this one, actually. So, that back door was on a slider. And what we were doing was we were filming the route of a car chase through Glasgow. And the guys had taken us up in the helicopter, and I would be like this guy here. And we opened this door and slid it back, right? So we could hang out and video the ground, so we're like 600 feet above it. And then the pilot goes, "I'll make it easier," and just tips the helicopter. At that point, you become very aware that the only thing keeping you in your seat is a fucking lap belt. Right? And it's like, holy shit. Don't drop the camera. So that was wild. That was good fun. Now this is a Eurocopter one. So this one, it wasn't this vehicle that crashed into Eastwood Toll. So I'm now going to go through Strathclyde Police's helicopter crashes. So one night in, oh God, when was it? 97, I think, something like that. The police helicopter was called out to something. It shouldn't have gone up because the Balco was in getting serviced, and they took the I think it was Bond helicopters. I think they were doing the contract. So again, ex-military pilot, I think Army this time, ex-Army, was flying a twin squirrel, and apparently it didn't have snow deflectors fitted, so it shouldn't have been flying in a snowstorm, which is effectively what happened. And it hit Eastwood Toll, and that's what was left of it. So the sergeant in the left-hand seat died. The pilot and the rear observer both survived, but with serious injuries.
Involving being turned into mincemeat.
Yeah, well, they were all seriously injured, but the pilot, the sergeant and the observer on the front left seat, I believe he was, he died because it hit the building and fell on that side, which wasn't great. I think there's another picture of it as well. Hold on, what's my mouse? Yeah. So this was a block of flats. It wasn't a tall block of flats, maybe only 6 or 7 stories, but it hit the block of flats, and you can see one of the marks on the wall where the helicopters hit it, you know. But it basically slid down the wall and landed like a pun of mince there. So that was that one, right? And then there was one with a Eurocopter, and it landed. Well, it didn't land. It came to rest in a field in Ayrshire. I'm not quite sure what happened. I think this one was pilot error, believe it or not. Again, ex-military pilot, and that one came to rest like that. Now, I believe that's the tail, obviously. So I think that's the bottom of the aircraft, right? And when we look at this one, I'm pretty sure these might be some kind of seats, right? Because that looks like the dashboard. All 3 occupants survived. Miracle, apparently. Because look at what they walked out of. You know, that's a pretty miraculous one. And then, of course, there was the worst one they had, which was another Eurocopter. And this one was chalked down to pilot error for not following the correct procedures when it comes to low fuel, right? Something to do with the fuel tanks and not transferring fuel from one tank to the other. So effectively, it ran out of fuel, even though it had fuel in one of the tanks. Now, I've got to give the pilot his due. He nearly fucking made it, right? Because he landed here. There's a helicopter, right? Poking out of the bar, the Clutha. Right? So the 3 people on the helicopter died. 7 people in the pub died, and 31 others were injured because it happened that night while the pub was open. Now, he's obviously on a descent and auto-rotating, I would guess, right? Because he nearly made the river. The river, see that road there? That's a bridge, and the river is about, the river's just down here. He's literally about, 40 feet away from the river. He nearly made it to the Clyde. If he made it to the Clyde, it would have been a much softer landing, and then the people in the bar wouldn't have died. But there you go. So that's Strathclyde's experience with helicopters. That's it, getting pulled out the bar. There wasn't a lot left of that either.
No, they're not. I mean, they're not exactly the safest things in the world.
No, they aren't. And there's a lot of them. A lot of them crash every year.
I think one of the things about this crash in Washington is it's not so much actually related to the crash, but it'll be very interesting to see how the Trump administration handles information. And I mean, I've just seen the statement that Pete Hegseth's given, saying that he's going to be completely transparent.
Yeah.
And apparently it was some sort of proficiency mission in the helicopter.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And they were flying, as you said, they were at high speed on night vision or something. But it's. I mean, for me, this one is. It's very easy to see, because as soon as something like this will happen, people online will jump all over it. And there'll be remote controls, and there'll be some. There's one person said we'll know why it was taken out when we get the passenger list from the aircraft. But I mean, that's just standard fare for Twitter. I mean, there's always people that will insist that everything's a conspiracy. And in this particular case, at this stage, I mean, maybe new evidence or something will come out at a later stage that might change that opinion. But right now, it just seems like a massive fuck up somewhere. Yeah. Whether it's pilots, maybe it's. I mean, these things usually, it's not just one person that fucked up. There's probably more than one person that's fucked up.
It's usually a combination of circumstances, isn't it, that ends up in an unfortunate coincidence of of
Yeah.
imperfect things going wrong and coming together in the perfect storm that just fucks everybody up. And these things happen, you know?
Absolutely. And I think it's not so much a test of the Trump administration, but it'll just be interesting to see how they handle the media and whether there's, because the previous administration was quite secretive in a lot of ways. And they were very good at manipulating the media and turning everything into a narrative. And I'm just curious to see what this new one is like, and particularly this Pete Hegseth guy, because he's not someone that I've ever heard of before, and he's fairly young. I mean, he does have actual combat experience, although not kind of commanding troops or anything, I don't think. But yeah, it's just it's because we're in the opening days of a new U.S. administration, and it's I mean, the jury's kind of out on them at the moment.
I mean, something might have gone wrong in the helicopter. Maybe the guy, maybe something had happened and he started climbing to give himself more time, you know?
It's possible.
It's possible there was something wrong. I mean, but we should find that out, you know, because it will have some kind of black box, I would imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's all above board, and the new administration is indeed going to focus on transparency, then within a week or two, we're probably going to know everything there is to know. They'll have released cockpit voice recordings from the plane. There might be some sort of, I don't know if military helicopters have got cockpit voice recorders. They probably do. There'll be witness statements from air traffic control, and they probably have radar plots and all kinds of other stuff that in theory should make the light of day.
Yeah.
And then probably by next week's show, we may well know a whole lot more about what's happened. And I mean, it's tragic for the people that have been impacted by it.
Yeah.
And that's awful, particularly the plane passengers. But another thing that Trump's already said that they've been in touch with the Russians about returning the bodies of the two Russians that died. So just that, it's, I don't know, because Russians are treated so appallingly just for no reason other than the fact that they're Russian, it seems, not being invited to the 80th commemoration of Auschwitz, despite the fact that they were the ones that bloody liberated it.
Yeah.
Which I personally, all of that stuff leaves a really bad taste in my mouth, and I don't think it's the right way that countries should interact with each other, or that people should interact with each other. So if Trump is going to change that and actually start treating the Russians with the respect that they deserve, then to me that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I would agree. We'll see what happens. I'm digging back into the Chinook crash. So the RAF Chinook helicopter that crashed in the American Tower, the 2nd of June 1994, so it was 94, approximately 1800 local time. Aircraft was en route from RAF Aldergrove near Belfast, Northern Ireland, to Fort George near Inverness. Carried 25 passengers and 4 crew. Crash occurred in dense foggy conditions, resulting in the deaths of all 29 aboard. The passengers, including leading security personnel from the RUC, from MI5, and from the British Army, who were all attending a security conference in Inverness. Crash happened 2 months before the 1994 IRA ceasefire. The exact cause remains unknown, despite the subject of controversy and multiple investigations over the years. Initially, the RAF blamed the pilots for the crash, leading to a 14-year campaign to clear their names. Subsequent inquiries and reviews have examined various factors, including potential technical issues with the Chinook's HC2 variant and its software systems. So we don't actually have a totally resolved outcome for that crash.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also, because there's plenty of helicopters that crash in the North Sea
Oh yeah.
as
Yeah.
well, because that's how they ship crew out to
Yeah. Yeah.
oil rigs and places like that. So, and I mean, if it was some sort of, the thing is that with this military crew, if it was some sort of proficiency thing, maybe they had instruments turned off that they would have normally had switched on, because they have to train in being able to fly without the instrument, for example.
Mhm.
So maybe there was other stuff happening within that helicopter because of the fact that they were doing some sort of proficiency exercise, which meant that because it's also military, so I mean there's probably situations where they turn off transponders and radars and collision avoidance stuff and all this kind of thing. So maybe there's something like that in this as well. And if they were flying at high speed and going in a direction that meant they wouldn't see the plane. But that's still the big one for me is, what the fuck was air traffic control doing? And I realize it's busy airspace, but the fact of the matter is that if you look at the UK, we have Heathrow and Gatwick, which are two of the busiest airports in the world. And I mean, my brother lives in London, but he's in the Heathrow, not the Heathrow flight path, but planes go over his house quite regularly. And there's times these things are just going in one after the other, big A380s and all this kind of, like, very large aircraft. And there's loads of them. And these air traffic controllers are having to deal with the aircraft, the helicopters, police helicopters, ambulance, air ambulances, all of the rich yuppies that have their own helicopters and all this kind of thing. So all of this stuff is going on, and they manage to do it. I mean, sometimes you wonder how they actually pull it off. And you would think that Washington D.C. would be very similar. I mean, they've got busy airports.
Yeah.
They have they've got restricted airspace, because there's certain parts of Washington, like the White House and the Capitol, that have no-fly zones over them. So there's certain places that you can't fly at all. You've got multiple different types of aircraft, so not just military helicopters, but civilian helicopters and police and all this kind of stuff. And you would think that something like this just shouldn't be able to happen, because there is someone there that's kind of watching what's going on, and able to say, hello, we've got a helicopter flying towards or an airplane flying towards a helicopter, or a helicopter flying towards an airplane. Someone needs to change course.
Yeah.
And it's that aspect of it that I think somehow has got to be the biggest fuck up, because yes, the pilots can and do everything. They're human, so everyone makes mistakes. But the whole point of the system is that there's different fail safes, because it's not just the pilots. You've got the air traffic controllers, and the air traffic controllers are not necessarily on their own either, because the ATC person will have a supervisor and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you do just have to wonder which part of the system went wrong that enabled this to happen, or what combination of bits of the system went wrong. Was it something that the helicopter crew did? Was it something that happened with air traffic control? Was there an equipment failure somewhere? I don't know. I mean, was the bloody helicopter hacked and it was done deliberately? There's all sorts of.
Well,
I mean, I'm not saying that that's what happened.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of people saying that these helicopters can be remotely controlled. But yeah, I think that's got to be pretty far out there on the list of things. McNeil's TV says he can't remember. He can't recall another time when a plane crashed into a helicopter, and I've got to point out that it is a fairly rare occurrence. There was one in 1986, a Bell 206 helicopter collided with a Grand Canyon Airlines Flight 6, a de Havilland Twin Otter, over the Grand Canyon. And there was another one where a Bell 412 helicopter collided with a Piper Aerostar in a suburb of Philadelphia. Although the near miss reporting rate for Plane V helicopter has increased quite dramatically from around 200 in 2014 to like 328 in 2019. So I'm not quite sure how close they have to be classified as a near miss, but that does seem to be quite a big jump in stats there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, but it also, I mean, it would track with increases in traffic to start with, more planes.
Yeah. Well,
probably more helicopters.
Yeah.
But also the thing with helicopters is that they are actually really maneuverable and they can go in all sorts of directions very quickly. So generally speaking,
the favourite direction for a helicopter is down.
Well, the favourite direction of most aircraft is down because they're fundamentally not supposed to be flying.
Yes.
But the fact is that they can go side to side, and it's, I don't know, you just wonder how.
The theme that seems to come out, though, is loss of situational awareness and misjudging of distance to other aircraft. That seems to be the two big things that cause the near misses and the actual crashes. Because the helicopters are pretty good at crashing on their own without needing anybody else's assistance.
Well, when you think about it, they kind of defy the laws of physics in a way, because it's obviously they work in concert with the laws of physics. I'm only joking about that, but when you actually look at them and that spinning thing, you just think, how the fuck does that even fly? Literally.
Yeah, I know. You ever been up in an autogyro?
No.
Or like a powered hang glider type thing? No. Those. Oh no, that's wild.
My trust levels don't extend to.
Oh, they're wild.
Like
they are just so wild because you're basically sitting there, right, with a full 360-degree view apart from the wing that's over you. You can't see through the wing. So if something came down on top of you, you would have no idea it was coming. You know?
That's true. You can actually do those over the Victoria Falls as well.
And they have a fantastic field of view, though. But the sensation of speed isn't there, right? Because you're going over the ground, and the ground passes quite slowly because you're only doing 70 or 80 mile an hour, right? Until you come to land, and suddenly you think, holy fuck! The ground's coming up awfully fast. Yeah.
Yeah, they just don't. When we were in Zambia and we were looking at the trips that we wanted to do, and it was a toss up between one of these flying hang glider things and a helicopter, I was just like, no, I'm gonna get into something that has a bit more substance to it. It's not essentially just a hang glider with a bloody lawnmower engine and a big propeller bolted on it.
Yeah. They are quite good fun, though. I mean, at one point I was contemplating taking my pilot's license and getting one for myself, but that was a while ago when I was younger and more stupid.
I can do heights if I'm enclosed, like in an aircraft or helicopter or something, but being exposed like that on one of those hang glidery things, it just doesn't appeal to me in the slightest.
Have you done any flying lessons or anything like that?
No.
Oh, you should. It's great fun. Absolutely brilliant. I've had a couple, but I ended up I couldn't afford it.
Well, that's the problem with flying lessons. The reason I don't do it is because I think I'd enjoy it so much.
Oh, it's brilliant.
That I'd just end up bankrupting myself, because once you got flying lessons, then it's like, oh, no, I need to get my own plane.
Yeah.
And then there's me thinking diving was an expensive hobby.
Oh, owning a boat has got to beat them all. Owning a boat's just like standing in the shower and burning 50s. It really is. I mean, I remember. I had a boat, and there are 2 days you're happy when you have a boat: the day you buy it and the day you sell it. That's it. Because boats are just a money drain. I remember I had a bayline, a 32-foot bayliner, 6 berth. That would do 35 knots because it had a 4.7 litre V12 Chevrolet engine in it. Right, this thing could shift, but it also drank fuel. Like on full chat, it was eating 90 litres an hour.
Christ.
Right, it had a 266-gallon fuel tank. Filling that was sore. I mean, that even back then, filling the tank would cost me like 300 or 400 quid. Fill the tank.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, just mental. Absolutely mental. I had a rib as well at one point. The rib was much more reasonable because you're only putting 6 gallons in a rib, and you can. I mean, they're fast as well. They're great fun. And yeah, and you can run a rib up the beach and things like that. So you could go all sorts of places. You can take a bigger boat, but you couldn't sleep in the rib.
Yeah, the company my dad used to work for in Zambia had a guest house company house on Lake Kariba, and that had a speedboat that we used for water skiing, and a large cabin cruiser that we could take up the lake, and that would sleep people and take food and stuff, which was quite fun.
Yeah. So it's not been a great rabbit hole tonight because there hasn't been a lot of rabbity stuff. I mean, there's no point in pursuing these wild theories about it being remote controlled and it just doesn't make any kind of sense for anything because there's no need for any distractions at the moment. Trump is pumping out enough stuff that there's plenty of distractions. Did you see not JFK, pardon me, RFK's hearing the other day?
Well, yeah, it's still going on today. Last I
heard,
I
think he's confirmed.
I thought he was earlier because I saw a post about it on Twitter, but apparently he's still in the hearing. Because I've just seen a video of him absolutely laying into Bernie Sanders and saying, look, if the corruption's not just in federal agencies, every one of you people is taking money from the pharmaceutical industry. And Bernie Sanders is the biggest recipient.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, what's her name? Elizabeth Warren had what? 800.
Yeah, no, I don't think she's in that room.
He had £821,000 or something in the last 4 years.
Yeah, but Bernie Sanders, it was 1.5 million in 2020. But it's, I mean, I hope, I don't necessarily agree with RFK Jr. about everything, but just in terms of the number of people in the pharmaceutical industry that must be absolutely soiling their underwear at the thought of him getting in. And also people in these federal agencies like the FDA and the CDC and all of these people that were giving us the whole safe and effective thing and doing a lot of the censoring and everything else. It'll be interesting to see how things change. And I mean, the two ones that I'm watching for, well, there's three. There's RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and Kash Patel.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, she's a very impressive lady. She's got combat experience and she's been in the military. And I don't necessarily agree with some of her views about the Middle East, but I've seen a lot of interviews with her where she does seem to have her head screwed on straight. And yeah, I mean, Robert Kennedy Jr. as in HHS is if he gets confirmed, again, it's going to be interesting.
So here we go. Nectarides has just published Headline on Zero Hedge. Reagan Tower reportedly understaffed when Army helicopter collided with passenger jet.
That's probably why Trump is talking about DEI stuff, because
It's
they
nothing
didn't
to
have.
do. I don't think it's anything to do with DEI stuff.
Well, if it was understaffed because they couldn't find enough fat black lesbians to make up their DEI quota, so they didn't hire anybody.
Would you do that? I mean, I don't know. Would you do that?
But apparently, Pete Buttigieg, or whatever, the old transport secretary,
Buttigieg or whatever his name is.
yeah, it's one of those freaking names. It's just like, come on, change your name.
So right, hold
But yeah,
on.
apparently he was massively woke.
Right, so Yazzie and Sarah Jane both say it's an illusion or a distraction, right? From what? From what? What are we being distracted from? So I'll wait.
Good question.
Yeah. What else?
Well, on this one, I think we can certainly come back to it.
Yeah, we will.
I'm just having a quick scan. Trump has just done a press conference, and the reporter said to him, "Do you have a plan to go visit the crash site?" And Trump says, "What's the site? The water? Do you want me to go swimming?"
Well, he's got a point. He has got a point.
Yeah,
Because they both ended up in the river, didn't they?
yeah. I think his new press secretary is fun, because she's basically just. There was a Babylon Bee post that they did yesterday saying reporters don't quite know what to do with the press secretary that answers questions.
Kaylee was good. I liked Kaylee.
Yeah, McInerney, the Irish named one.
Yeah.
This one. I don't know.
haven't
I
seen
mean,
it.
anyone is going to be better than
been-
that silly woman that Biden had.
Oh, Slideshow Bob. Yeah. Jean Pierre.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been kind of busy this week because I've had some trying times, people. Trying times. So the storm seems to have half wrecked the van because it's leaking like an absolute sieve. So I've got a insurance claim in against that. So we'll see what happens. The car sprung a puncture and ABS fault. All just before it's due its MOT tomorrow.
God.
So I've fixed all those things. The van's not looking good, people. It's not looking good. So we'll see what happens. But I'll send you some pictures, Shalini. Yeah.
Oh, MOT day is always nerve-wracking.
Yeah, well, it's going for its MOT tomorrow at 11. I needed a new cable between the ABS sensor and the connection that goes into the ECU or whatever.
New donation from Nick Taridus.
So thank you, Nick, to read it. So I appreciate it. So I needed a new cable, and I plugged it in and turned it on, and thought the light's not going out. The ABS light's still on, and I reversed. It's still on. I drove forward. It's still on. I thought, sod this. So I just took off and went up to the house. And about halfway down the first part of the road, the light suddenly went boop, out. So obviously it just needed a few rotations to realise that the ABS sensor was working now. So I don't have any faults.
I'm not a car person. I know how to drive one, but I wouldn't know how to fix it.
No, the fuel sensor's fine, Ray. It was the cable. It was just a connecting cable. I got one on eBay for 18 quid.
Just having a quick look to see if there's anything that's about this crash that's come up since we've been on air.
Johnny's off to bed. Night, night, darling.
No, Shalini. Yeah, apparently CNN is really callous because their presenters were using toy aircraft to demonstrate the crash. And then they're accusing Donald Trump of being mean and insensitive. And also the other thing about this crash that does kind of raise some questions is particularly after 9/11.
Yeah.
Where we had supposedly something crashed into the Pentagon.
Yeah.
You would think that they would be a bit more shit hot on aircraft doing things that they're not supposed to.
24 years ago. That was nearly a quarter of a century ago. Do you not think they maybe slackened off a bit?
Yeah, they probably have.
You know, you can't keep your foot on the gas all the time, you know.
Yeah, it was two Russian figure skaters. No, you can't. And also, I mean, at the end of the day, it is a simple fact that people do make mistakes, and things do go wrong sometimes. And if the air traffic control was understaffed to begin with, then things like this can easily happen.
Yeah, pressure mounts up.
Sure, and I mean, it's not being an air traffic controller can't be an easy job at all.
And what was that movie?
Which one?
The one where, was it Billy Bob Thornton was in it? He was the air traffic controller. Oh no, it wasn't. Was it? Who was it? Who was the air traffic controller? Was it John Cusack? It was about air traffic controllers.
Oh, I think I know the one you mean. Can't remember the name of it though.
I can't remember the name either. It was quite a good movie. So, you watched any good movies this weekend? I've watched a couple of movies this week, I must admit.
Have I watched any good movies this week? Yeah, I did. Oh well, I rewatched Dances with Wolves.
All right, yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
It's bloody brilliant. If you can watch the extended version.
Okay.
And it's long, and Kevin Costner just looks unfeasibly young. But it's bloody brilliant, and I have it on good authority that all of the stuff that relates to Native Americans is actually the only part about the film that's not accurate from a Native American perspective is the fact that he has to run to the tribe telling them about the buffalo, and all the Native American tribes would have their own buffalo man, so they already know where the bloody buffalo were.
Yeah.
But it's a great movie.
What did I watch this week? I watched a movie last night called Levels, which I found very interesting. I quite enjoyed the movie. The acting was shite. I'll just put that out there. It just wasn't good. Cara G was in it, you know, drummer out of The Expanse. But she wasn't really. Do you remember? You watched The Expanse, didn't you? You know, drummer, the bird that talked with a South African accent. She was rubbish. Her acting was rubbish. She just seemed to do an awful lot of smiling for no apparent reason. The guy in it was completely forgettable, and the other guy that was in it was McKay out of Stargate Atlantis, Dr. Rodney McKay. Because I'm sitting looking at him because he had a white beard, and wore a beanie all the time, and I'm thinking, who the hell is that? He just looks so familiar. I couldn't place him there. I thought, it's fucking McKay. So anyway, but apart from the acting being absolutely pretty crap, the story itself was pretty good because it was all about simulations and how this guy finds out he's in a simulation. And Cara G comes from the real world, which turns out not to be the real world. It just fucking keeps the simulation within simulation within simulation. And I was thinking, if you were in the simulation, though, how would you determine you were in the simulation, right? And you can't go up because you can't break out. You know, people that think you can break out your simulation have got to be wrong. So I think the only way of determining if you're actually in a simulation is to make your own. If you can make a simulation, you're either the original or you're a simulation yourself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? No? I
Um,
don't think you're listening to me.
no, I was listening to you. I'm just thinking that but there are scientists that reckon we are in a simulation.
Yeah,
The-
I know.
The
I know.
holographic universe theories. So if we were in a simulation, how would we know?
You've got to
we
make
were
your
in-
own. You have got to make your own proper functioning digital universe, right? That's the only way of telling if you're in a simulation, in my view. If you can do that, I'm pretty much then going to say 90% we are a simulation. If you can't do it, then we're probably not a simulation. Or we're a really bad simulation.
With the state of clown world, that is an entirely possible explanation.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, we've just got so much to cover tomorrow as well. Just
Yeah,
ridiculous.
we'll not go into that yet. I also watched Alien vs Predator. Well, I rewatched it, and
Yeah, it's a good movie.
you know, I really enjoy it. I enjoy these movies. Like, do you remember Hammer horrors and things like that? And they always had,
Yeah, I was never really.
you know,
into it.
like even Dracula and Frankenstein and the werewolf. Not they always had this long, slow build up to the denouement. That's a good word, isn't it? Denouement. Anyway, they always had this long, slow build up, and I love that. I love this. You know, like Quatermass in the Pit, where you've got this whole exposition thing going on, or you know, and they're building up towards what's going to be happening. Well, Alien v Predator's a bit like that, because 45 minutes in, I don't think we've actually, apart from the very start, we have not really seen much, and there's not been an awful lot of action, which is great. But I actually really enjoyed it, because I remember watching it the first time thinking it was a bit of a fluff piece, but I actually did quite enjoy it once I saw it again, which is quite interesting.
I think
in my view.
it's to be honest, I think it's also older movies because some of the newer movies are so unbelievably crap that you can go back to an older one where they didn't have so much CGI or any CGI,
Yeah,
and they have to leave a lot more to the imagination. It's like Jaws is a really good example of that. I mean, obviously, apart from the plastic shark at the end, which looks very dated now. But that film, I mean, you didn't even see the shark for
no, I know.
ages into the film.
Yeah,
And it's that the tension happens in your mind. And if they tried to remake Jaws now, it would just be CGI shark extravaganza. And the film would not be, it wouldn't be as good as it is.
yeah, because if you look at something like The Meg, that was just crap. Pure unadulterated crap.
Just, yeah. But I mean, Jaws is another one of those movies where the first one is brilliant.
Yeah.
And all the ones that came after it and all of the spin-offs and what is it, fucking Sharknado and all these other ridiculous ones. That they're just like rubbish B movies. Trying to kind of cash in on the original one. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there are don't get me wrong, there are good new movies that have come out. But they seem a bit few and far between sometimes.
Oh,
And they're always a bit too full on.
yeah. Right.
I think we've done that one.
Yeah, I think we've done it to bits, mate. I think we've done it to bits. So
Not much rabbit hole, but we'll be better prepared next week.
we will. Hopefully, we will be. We'll be back tomorrow with Paula and yeah.
The last all in of January.
Oh my God, January just lasts forever, doesn't it?
I know, it's about 700 fucking days or something.
January, sick and tired of you hanging on me.
But I mean, it's another week where
That was a Scottish
go
band, Pilot. Do you remember that song, January?
Mm,
Do you
not
know?
off the top of
No?
my head.
Oh, it was number 1 for ages.
I
Oh.
probably have heard it.
Freaking annoying. Anyway, just like January.
But yeah, I mean, because we've had the Senate confirmation hearings, and I mean, we're probably, unless there's something new comes up, we probably don't need to touch on the plane crash tomorrow, but there's plenty of other stuff to discuss.
Yeah. Worried
And
about
God
Trump.
knows what's going to happen tomorrow.
I'm a bit worried about Trump
Why?
because he seems to be taking very Biden-esque lines on certain events.
Yeah, he does. I mean, his whole approach towards Russia-Ukraine thing hasn't been particularly great.
And
But
the other event out in the Middle East.
yeah, we always knew he was going to be a bit of a disaster in that respect.
Yeah.
But I think it's also, to start with, he's getting really bad information. So once, I mean, it's on the assumption that Tulsi Gabbard's going to get the job, and she's going to be responsible for making sure Trump is briefed properly on intelligence matters.
Yeah.
I think once he's got his team in place and he's not getting information from Biden holdovers and people who are probably trying to manipulate him into a particular direction, and also, frankly, he needs to stop listening to the bloody Ukrainians when it comes to things like casualty figures, because I mean, some of the numbers that he's come out with are just so laughably ridiculous that you can't. I mean, apparently, when he was talking about 1 million Russians being killed and the Russian economy being on its knees, the Russians were all pissing themselves laughing.
Yeah, no wonder. I mean,
absolutely, but it's, and I, to be honest, I think it's bad information. Unfortunately, I don't think Donald Trump is listening to the right people when it comes to, certainly not when it comes to the Ukraine situation.
I'm not convinced he's a good listener.
But I mean, there's no, people like that generally aren't particularly good listeners. And it is also sort of a my way or the highway kind of thing.
Yeah, but we'll dig into that. We'll dig into that tomorrow, mate.
We've got loads to cover.
Yeah, we will. Well, thank you, everyone. And remember, if you liked it, like it. If you didn't, then why the hell are you still here? Like, share, subscribe, evangelize. Drop us some money if you can, because every little bit helps. Because even though it is now monetized again, we make about 12 pence an episode. And I'm not joking. Thank you, and appreciate it, Nick Doritos, for your donation earlier. You are a good guy. And you people out there who donate, you know who you are. And I love you deeply. So, good night. It's been great
I guess.
for you.